Let's have a talk, let's have a chat, talking about a little this and that. Hello and welcome to another episode of This and That. I am your host, Mary Easterling, and today we are continuing on with the Vulgar School and the Red Letter Edition. This will be episode 9. But before I begin, to listen to the last episode from the Vulgar School of the Red Letter Edition, go to talkingaboutthисandthat.wordpress.com and click on the podcast link. Today we are going to be going through Matthew 5:38 through 48. So let's get into it. Matthew 5:38, you have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now, this is straight up Torah out of Exodus 21, 24, and 25. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. This is the law. This is the Torah. This is an equal punishment for the crime, which limits the response of the offended, as in you cannot do more damage than what was done for you. It's an eye for an eye. You can't have both eyes. You can't blind the person for hurting you in the eye. You can't take every tooth out of their mouth for the loss of one. You can't go beyond the hand or the foot or the burn or the wound or the lash. That would be the stripe. It's equal. It's called equity, and that's the idea here. Equity, an equal return. And then Jesus is going to take it up a notch. Verse 5:39, but I tell you, resist not evil. Whoever would smite, strike, hit, slap you on the right cheek, turn the other also. That is an interesting series of thoughts. Why does he even bring up, you've heard it said, when that's out of the Torah? Because where is he, who is his audience? Who is he addressing in this time? He's addressing a bunch of people sitting under Roman rule. They're not loving it. So this is not just about abuse. It's also about insult. It's also about trust. Historically, it's said that the right cheek slap is backhanded, and this is how it goes. You have your right hand, you have your left hand. The left hand doesn't get involved in a lot of stuff because it's doing the business down south when you go potty. So it's considered the dishonorable hand. Nobody in their right mind would be left-handed. You eat with your right hand, you grasp, you this, you that with your right hand. It's all right-handed because the left might not be so clean. So to backhand slap a person is to treat them as lesser than. That takes away your dignity. It's meant to humiliate you, to imply inequality in a power dynamic. You would think, well, you would want to turn around and backhand them. And Jesus says, no, don't do that. That's only going to be fighting fire with fire. In an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, yes, you turn around, haul off, and backhand them. What if this is a Roman slapping you who are a Jew? Do you know what will happen to you for slapping that Roman back? Are you serious? How dead do you want to be? How much pain do you want to put your family through? Because he's talking to men. In this right-handed society, the slap to the right hand, the right side of the face, the right cheek, is the backhanded insult. It's designed to dishonor, to reinforce a subordinate status. It strips you of your dignity. If you turn the other cheek, however, you force a second confrontation. This is not a passive submission. It's a nonviolent action asserting equality and dignity. When you turn the other cheek, the left side of your face, you are asking your aggressor to slap you again. What? Wait a minute. Turns out that because they will not backhand you with the left hand unless they do, which is even more insulting because they just slapped you with the hand they wiped their bum with. You don't know where that hand's been. And if they cut you, what kind of garbage just got into the cut on your face from the dirty hand they slapped you with? That's the risk. However, normally the confrontation forces the person to now use their right hand in an open palm slap to the left side of your face. They're still berating you. Make no mistake, they're still insulting you, but they're now doing it by declaring you to be an equal. But there's another risk. They could look at you, raise their hand, think the better of it, put their hand down, maybe spit at you or something else, and walk away, leaving you with the backhanded slap. You didn't get your dignity back. They decided not to go any further. Now, either way, you've stopped the abuse. They've stopped. They've walked away. You're not retaliating. You're allowing yourself the risk of the loss of your right to dignity, to equality, because there's actually a whole other thread that runs through this, entrustment. In Proverbs 3:5-6, we're told, trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. That is Old Testament. That's the Proverbs of Solomon. Every male Jew would know that proverb. Jesus is literally saying, instead of retaliating, trust in the Lord with all your heart, in all of your emotion, impulse, and passion. Don't rely on your own understanding, mental assent, figure it out, thinking it through. Don't rely just on that, because that might not give you the right answer. That will tell you to go for broke, get yourself killed. So you're going to risk the loss of your dignity. And what is your dignity? The declaration of self-worth. Paul will later talk about dying to self. And this is where Jesus is going with that. You're dying to self here. You've just been stripped of your dignity. So now, Matthew 5:40 takes it into another arena, the lawsuit. Remember, he'd said, agree with your enemy on the way to the lawsuit. See if you can work out a deal so you don't have to stand before the judge. Oh, well, what if that fails? And they take you to court and they take away your tunic. Okay. If any man would sue you in court to take away your tunic, the undercoat, give also to him your cloak. All right, now, for a Jew, the Torah says, if your cloak is being held as a surety for a pledge, I owe you, I'll pay you. Hold my cloak. You can only hold that cloak during the day. You must return it to the owner at night. Why? You live in the desert, folks. Hotter than the hinges of Hades by day, colder than outer space by night. It's cold. That cloak is his blanket. It's how he survives the night. He's not sleeping in just his undertunic and his overcoat. That blanket is what he sleeps in. His cloak is what he sleeps in. And it's not just for Jews. It's also for Romans. A Roman might use their cloak for their sleep. They better keep it clean, but you know what I mean. That's part of your survival gear. Taking away the cloak is threatening the person's life. You're leaving them with nothing. Okay, so in first century Roman-occupied Judea, this is what AI will serve up, a Roman cannot legally confiscate another person's outer cloak, the himation or blanket, not even in a lawsuit. It was legally protected for warmth. This is a provision clause. However, Matthew 5:40 suggests the scenario where a person voluntarily offers up their cloak to their opponent, who is not only suing for the inner tunic, highlighting a call to extreme non-retaliatory violence, non-retaliatory objection to what's being done, but it's also non-violent. So it's a non-retaliatory generosity. The outer cloak, which is essential for life as a blanket through Jewish law and Roman law, prohibited keeping it as a pledge overnight, also prohibits it being taken in a lawsuit for a Roman. This is Roman law. So now, here's the thing. In the context of the verse, the passage is part of the sermon teaching the follower to forgo the legal right to avoid engaging in lawsuits or conflict. Offering the cloak is meant to shame the creditor or legal opponent. This is what we're told. As a person would be left nearly naked in public, which is a severe embarrassment in Roman-era culture. Essentially, the law does not allow them to take the cloak, but the teaching advises giving it up anyway to disarm the conflict with proactive, radical love. The strange twist here is it actually turns the lawsuit meant to impoverish you into something that's gone overboard, stripping you naked in front of the Senate. See, it's fine if you are just wrapped in your outer cloak and you have nothing on underneath because they took everything. You have nowhere to go because they took everything. But the minute you give up your outer cloak, that nakedness, that loss, that evil is now exposed. However, there's a risk here. And this, by the way, would break the cycle of corruption and abuse from the law, the Roman law. but you're risking something here because you're inviting the idea of being shamed as naked. One can actually take that cloak in a corrupt society where you are the person to be picked on. That's not uncommon. Thus, you are abandoning the right to property and protection at the same time. You're giving up another right, a right of self to possess what self needs to live, and the protection of a blanket at night in a desert that's cold. You're going to go out of that place stark, buck naked. And when the sun goes down, you're going to be in trouble. Do you think a fellow Jew is going to want to look at you? You are out there in all your shame. Seriously? You're risking your life, but you're not retaliating. It gets better. There's another little thing that Romans would do. Matthew 5:41. Whoever compels you to go with them 1 mile, go with them 2. Roman law allowed soldiers to force civilians to carry the heavy pack, but restricted this to 1 mile that's counted out by the step to prevent excessive abuse. Now, I'm also going to put in here, those packs were not a joke. You get tired of having to march and carry them. So you grab a Jewish person and say, here, just put all that on him and say, walk, count them out. And so for a mile, you get relief. Then you shrug it back on and you move on till you find somebody else. See? But now, if you go the second mile, how long has this person been? 1 mile? No, actually, I volunteered to go a second mile. Oh, hey, what? That's excessive abuse. That soldier potentially risks a flogging, a loss of pay, a demotion, and other assorted penalties. So on the one hand, you think, well, that's a really clever way to stick it to the Roman. Yeah, well, you could be getting yourself an enemy in the person of that soldier, especially if he's going to be be in the barracks in your area. That soldier might just seek you out to handpeck you, find ways to get you in trouble. Get the tax man to rip everything away from you. Oh, once again, you're putting yourself in danger. So this practice is common during Roman occupation. The limitation is designed to prevent blatant and unchecked tyranny over the residents. It's commonly linked to the extra mile teaching of Jesus, where willingly carrying the second mile is a way to expose the soldier's illegal abusive behavior. It's a form of protest. It's non-retaliatory. It's clever. However, it's also seen as a radical love. But this is noteworthy to point out that this is an abuse. You just exceeded the restriction. You may get this soldier in trouble. You may have made yourself an enemy. However, taking the obligation of force and turning it into a voluntary action by going the second mile gives that soldier a second mile of relief. Might also spare someone else from having to carry the pack. This is called loving your enemy, and you are giving up your right to your time. When you get jerked to one side by that soldier, fatted out in his back, and you start to count out for that 1 mile, what were you in the middle of doing? You're a mile away from home, and once you go 2 miles, you're now 2 miles away from home. What if this is the Shabbat? You know you're not allowed to walk back until the next day. You're caught out. That's not good. I mean, may I remind you, you're not in friendly territory unless you're in the village. If these guys are walking out, they're just walking out. They're doing the march. What were you in the middle of doing? You just lost time and distance. You're putting your health at risk to do this. You don't know what's in that pack. You don't know what diseases that soldier has, and he's putting his leather on your back. You're now risking your health. You're giving up your right to your own time and physical health. Again, this is giving up the right of self. You're going to have to trust God to make it up. In all these 3 areas, you're giving up yourself, your dignity, your property, and provision, time, and possibly health. In all these things, Jesus will tell us the Father sees and knows the need that a human has for dignity. And he knows the one who restores dignity, possession and provision / protection. And he becomes the provider. Time, which is important because it could have a detrimental domino effect or knockoff effect on the day or the season even, and the health of the individual. And he will make the provisions for the lack incurred or the risk by going the second mile. Right here, you're forced to trust in the Lord. But he goes on. He goes from not resisting the evil in these things to Matthew 5:42. Give to the one who asks of you, and to the one who would borrow from you, do not turn that one away. In the era that Jesus is speaking, in unpaid debts, which could lead the borrower to being chained for up to 60 days, during which time creditors might display them in the forum, potentially resulting in slavery or death if no one, a vindex, one who vindicates, intervenes to pay. Yeah, you could be sold. So while you are not turning away the person who borrows from you, you could become indebted, impoverished. By giving like this, you're risking becoming indebted. This is the opposite of being sensible and saving. Well, you gave all this away, and now you have a need, and you have to go take out a loan, and you can't pay it back. Uh-oh. If you hadn't given, you would have been all right. Again, you're going to go back to trust. So the risk of enslavement due to the way of loans being processed is a very serious risk. The mutum was a common loan for consumption, transferring ownership to the borrower, who was responsible for returning equivalent, not identical items. Interest was legal. Usury was legal, and it was heavily regulated by the state. It often required a separate additional contract, a stipulatio, a stipulation right, to be enforced. Like I said, this is usury, something that was forbidden to Jewish contractors amongst Jewish brethren. However, these are Romans. No such stipulation exists with Rome. They're the paganos, and they will do to you what they will do to you. This makes the point that this is, in Christian culture, of not adapting Roman rules of repayment with usury and going further to not exact repayment at all. In contrast to the rigid, punitive Roman legal system, religious texts like Matthew 5:42 advise generosity, instructing people to give to the one who asks and not turn away the one who wants to borrow. This goes past humiliations into risk of loss. All of the above are risking a loss. It was perhaps a means to quietly challenge the system. But we have to remember that although Jesus walked away from abuses while he was in ministry, he ultimately lays down his life by allowing the crucifixion to occur. And that is humiliations galore. An abuse off the scale. So you're now literally starting to go from risk to risk to risk of status, protection, freedom for your life. You might get the other guy in trouble. You might find that justice turns a blind eye to the abuser and you die for it. All these things you're not to withhold. This is providing out of your substance for others, showing the light of the love of God to others, and you're going to have to trust God now to keep you from becoming the next person in want. But, okay, we'll go another notch. You've heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. All right, part of this is Old Testament, part of this is not. Love your neighbor as yourself is Old Testament. Even Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength. And your neighbor as yourself. Upon these two things hang or depend all the law, the Torah, and the prophets. So that's Torah. However, there is nowhere written in the Torah that you are to hate your enemy. You are not told to hate your enemy. That's why he says you've heard it said. They're adding something to the Torah that doesn't exist. This is being said. This is resistance speak. It's protestation. But the above told us not to resist. Take the insult, the removal of status, and permit it. Turn the other cheek. If they slap it, they'll restore you to being an equal. You might not get it slapped. They might leave you in humiliation. They might leave you naked. You might have gone 2 miles only to get yourself into serious trouble because you got the Roman officer whom you were being so loving to in serious trouble. And all of the above sounds like it would expose sin. But the matter is that many times Romans look the other way because you're a Christian or a Jew, not unlike right now. Right now we're in an environment where there's a lot of anger and venom and vitriol. We see the same warp of the word. The true, holy love does not hate. God has the only right to hate, and he hates one thing, sin. He hates it because of what it does to his creation. So, all right, Matthew 5:44 continues the sentence. But I tell you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, pray for those who despitefully use you, persecute you. What? Here's the issue. You belong to God. It is God who will exact retribution. Vengeance is mine, and I shall repay. So if we're garnering hatred, then we've rejected his nature, which is to love, as in agapeos, which is to love continuously and unconditionally. God will requite the eye for the eye clause in the last breath. So we want to pray for mercy for those who use and persecute us. In Strong's Greek, 1908, the word persecute is, and it's in the English, is to traduce. But the Greek is epirazo, which is to mistreat and falsely accuse and revile. So we're not talking about being beaten. We're talking about maligning, slandering, libel, that sort of abuse. The kind of things that ruins your reputation and can get you out of a job. You stay because you have to. You endure it even if it kills you. You're found crying out for their souls. In some cases, that's exactly what happens. You're trusting God with your life. Now, people say, oh, no, that's not healthy. You need to get out of an abusive situation. In some cases, there is no way out. You're going to entrust God with your life. In the above, you were to walk the 2 miles. You were to turn the obligation into voluntary action. This is loving the enemy. The Roman who compelled you away from your time and your place to go that 1 mile, you've now gone 2. You've provided the relief from all that pack, turning an abuse into a demonstration of his love. You didn't slap them back. You challenged them to restore your dignity, which is actually something that's a good thing because it makes them less evil in the eyes of society. By giving up your cloak, you've shamed someone who's unfairly going after you. It might actually be good for them to then, go, you know what? No. And just drop the suit entirely and hand everything back. Walk away. You're trying to give these people the opportunity for equity to do the right thing, and you're exposing the evil. But you're doing it in a challenging but nonviolent manner. Okay, but why? Matthew 5:45. That you may be the children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends the rain on the just and on the unjust. Seasons and weather. He doesn't turn the seasons against the evil amongst us. He doesn't remove the rain, at least not now, from the evil amongst us. At the end of the day, they breathe their last, and they're judged for not believing in the sun. But God doesn't take away the elements of the world, and it doesn't stop spinning. This is the makings of peace. And I connect the next verses here because they apply. Matthew 5:46. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Don't even the publicans do the same? Publicans, tax collectors, turncoats in Jewish society, lowest of the low. But when he's talking about the word love, he's always using the word agapeos, the God kind of love, wholehearted, unconditional love. You find this reflected in relationships that click. The flow of allegiances come together, the mutual affection and preference for each other that rises above social network and friendships. Like loves like here. They're outcasts as tax collectors, and they form bonds and relationships and closeness like brothers. But when we use this word, agapeos, we're not using phileos, which is brotherly love. We're using unconditional love, no strings attached. It's heightened. The idea of this love is heightened significantly. They're more than loving. It's sort of the unbreakable bonding. It's kind of a ride or die scenario. And so he asks us, if we're simply going to show love for those who show it in return, the reward here is reciprocity. What about the mandate to love those who do not love in return? So he takes it up another notch. Matthew 5:47. And if you salute or greet your brethren only, what are you doing that is more than others? Do not the publicans also do the same? The emphasis of this word is salute. Strong's Greek 782, espasmai, to enfold, embrace, greet, welcome, commune with, hang with, talk to, a lot, befriend, as in besties. This keeps defaulting to publicans and tax collectors because they're considered the lowest, traitorous of them all. Right now, in 2026, you might insert the word ICE, because right now they're seen as the lowest of the low. In other words, sinners. The world clicks with those that click with them. Their reward is always going to be reciprocity. You're loving because you're going to get love back, but that's not true love. True love is seen as sacrificial. It's giving out and getting nothing back, and this destroys self. It destroys the whole of the soul. But God is the one who rebuilds you in his image. But why? And then he goes right turn, left. I mean, he goes at a right angle to this. It's like, oh, you're going, okay, so you're going to tell us in the next verse. No, the next verse, Matthew 5:48, he just says, be perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. But the word perfect, Strong's Greek 5046, is translatable also as mature. And immediately we are at Paul saying, when I was young, I acted and spoke and thought like a young person, like a child. And when I grew up, I put off or discontinued the childish things and ways. I grew up. I matured. We think and act differently with reserve and wisdom and a different sense of preference, loving quite often where it is not ever requited. This verse of maturity into how God thinks or loves is a direct link back to 5:45, being a child of the Father, or Matthew 5:9, and blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God, or mature, as their Father is mature. Everything above, from turning the other cheek to giving up the cloak, to walking the second mile, to loving those that don't love you back, are examples of peacemaking. And you would be called children of your Father, because he is always making peace. He does things in the natural to try and avoid conflict amongst men. It's the men that have ideas that cause conflict amongst each other, because that's just the way it is. Finally, this is, in a very real sense, as we would look at it today, about rights, my rights. Jesus is literally telling us to let go of, quote-unquote, our rights, to simply permit the risk and the loss and the degradation. That's not a popular statement. While I would say that a woman in a violent domestic setting should try to leave, it's not always easy. It's not always possible. At the end of this, you're looking at one other word, martyrdom. The next chapter will shift these gears entirely. Here, we're seeing heart attitudes. In the next chapter, we start seeing the actions that come out of these heart attitudes. And so, until then,